Hey everybody, it's a wrestling classic. Justin here. Just want to record this intro before we get to the interview and the conversation with the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. I'm here with Daniel Ali. If you guys have noticed, some of you might be new here, but if you guys have noticed, I haven't dropped an interview in a little bit here. November usually gets really busy for me, and I did try to promise you guys I'd drop 2 interviews a month. We got a couple of big ones coming up, but I took a little bit of a break in November. If you didn't notice, or if you're new here, welcome to the Wrestling Classic YouTube channel. Welcome to the TWC Show podcast stream, guys. We drop a weekly episode of the TWC Show every week. You guys can check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Also on Ruckus Avenue Radio and the Dash Radio app. So every Monday you can listen to the show and some of these interviews on Ruckus Avenue Radio. Guys, also check out Daniel Ali's podcast, the Dropkick Podcast. A lot of great episodes in the archive. And yeah, I hope you guys really enjoy this conversation with Bryan Danielson. Once again, if you guys are new here, follow me on the Instagram at The Wrestling Classic. All the links that are necessary in my bio. Go buy yourself some merch. New merch out there. New merch on the TWCshop.com.
There we go.
Look at this stuff. It's dope. It's too sweet. But that all being said, I was really excited for this interview. I know Daniel was really excited for this interview. Both long time
man.
Danielson. And it was a good time. Did you enjoy it, Daniel?
No, I think it was definitely, if not the best interview I've been part of, because he was so genuine. Like, he literally spoke from his heart. And Bryan's known for being a genuine human being. So I think him just taking the time out of his day and, being part of us virtually was,
very
meaningful.
grateful for the opportunity.
For sure.
He was a genuine dude. He was laid back, very easy to talk to. Shout out to my boy Meech for making this all happen. Guys, check out the interview. Give us some feedback. When we post this on social media, if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a review, drop 5 stars. If it's on YouTube and you're watching it, drop a comment. Let us know how you felt about this interview. Once again, like I said, yes, I was slacking a little bit in November. It's my birthday month. Got a little busy. We had Mariah May in the last interview. I believe that was in October. But we're ending November with a bang. We have Bryan Danielson, guys. Enjoy the conversation and keep doing the thing. We'll see you all later. Ooh, yeah! Dig it. And we are back for another casual conversation with the classic. And today, guys, we got a very special guest. We are honored and privileged to have arguably the best professional wrestler on the planet today, in my opinion, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, and thank you for that. That's a very nice introduction. So
thank you. I know we don't have a whole lot of time because you're going to be on Dynamite tonight, Wrestling Colt Cabana, which people will see that by the time this comes out, but that is tonight. So I want to jump into things right away. I know you've been asked this question a ton, so I'm going to try to put a little bit of a spin on it. I'm very curious because you were working at a company that you loved a lot. Your family's all there, everybody works there, and you made the decision to come to AEW. I was curious because I've heard some of your interviews where you've talked about, you watch everything and you see what's going on in the wrestling world, and that was part of you making your decision to maybe try wrestling somewhere else. And I was wondering, was there like a specific match or moment or something you saw that you're like, maybe I want to give that a shot and wrestle over there?
Well, so it's not necessarily a moment or anything like that, although I was particularly moved, like many people were, by the AEW tribute of Brody Lee. So he was a good friend of mine, and to me, they went above and beyond, like, especially for his son, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For his wife and all that kind of stuff. And that really touched my heart. And so there was that, but there was also like, I watched a lot of Zack Sabre Jr. I like him a lot. I think he's my favorite wrestler to watch. I think because I was doing, before I started in WWE, I was doing some very aggressive technical wrestling with combining different submissions and doing different things. And then I started watching Zach wrestle more and more, and he was just like, whoa. He was just like blowing away the things that I had.
Yeah.
And in a way, to me, that's really, really cool. And I think it's juxtaposed by his physique, which also like it adds to his like it almost adds to his credibility as a submission wrestler in the sense that like he's not, you don't look at him and be like, this guy's strong, or he's not using any power. It's 1000% technique, which is like,
Mhm.
which was just really cool. And I thought of like, oh man, I'd love to be able to do some more stuff like that. And then I looked, you know, and WWE obviously wants yes guy Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They, because I mean that's marketable for them.
Yeah.
Doing the yes chant. They, to me, it felt a little bit like there was, it trapped me in certain ways.
Fair
Right.
Mhm.
enough. Yeah.
Somebody who like yearns for freedom. Like my favorite part of my whole run in WWE was when I was the Planet's champion and I wasn't doing the yes chant at all. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This wild thing. So like seeing stuff like that, and just like I also, wrestling's given me so much. And
Mhm.
there's also this idea, and I talked to a couple different people that I normally don't talk to about this kind of stuff, but just like, where could I best be of service? Like now,
Mhm.
my idea of wrestling and my job in wrestling is mostly to give back, right?
Mhm.
And also from like, and that's not just a wrestling perspective. From in my community and all that kind of stuff, I've been so blessed and everything like that. Eddie Kingston and I were talking about this. It's like now, we've both been very fortunate or whatever, and now it's our turn to give back and to help. And where could I best be of service?
Mhm.
And just in talking to some people that I really respect and getting their feedback and everything, one of the things that I thought too is I could be of best service, in AEW and doing some outside things.
Are you looking forward? Are we going to see maybe a Brian Danielson versus a Jack Sabres Jr.? Was the idea of being able to wrestle in Japan a big factor in making that decision as well?
Well, so I WWE would have let me do some shows in New Japan. I don't know how much, but I mean,
Yeah.
at like, it's interesting because given the pandemic and the way that it is now, it's not
Yeah.
really like, it's not this urgent, right? And humans, like myself included, aren't great at like looking at the long term picture of things, right? So like
Yeah.
Mhm.
like I was like, well, in 18 months I'll be able to go wrestle in New Japan, when the pandemic is over, because I'm mostly thinking about like, okay, what does my next week look like or whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, and so it the idea, both sides probably I would have been able to wrestle in Japan, but then there's just the idea. There was also the idea of like being able to spend more time at home with my kids, like all that kind of stuff. Although, although honestly, it was a very difficult decision, and there were times that I, at different points, was going one way or the other. You know what I mean? So.
Mhm.
Of course, a few years back, you were forced to retire. So I was also curious, like, was coming back and getting that second opportunity to wrestle again after you got cleared, did that kind of open your mind up to like, well, maybe I want to try wrestling other places now that I've gotten this second chance at wrestling?
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea. I've always loved wrestling in other places. I love being independent wrestler.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Realistically, if when I signed with WWE, it was mostly because I was like, oh, I'm not sure how much my health can sustain this independent wrestling. So it was kind of like I didn't look at it as cashing out, but kind
Yeah.
of cashing out, right? Like,
Mhm.
here's my opportunity to kind of pay off my house, to do whatever it is, you know what I mean? And kind of going in with very few expectations other than to just come in with a good attitude. My mentor William Regal, he's been such a great mentor to me for my entire career. But he said, a lot of people get hung up on the not getting pushed or not getting opportunities or whatever it is. You have to look at it at a
Mhm.
certain way, and like any opportunity you get, you have to grab. But if you're not getting opportunities, just take this as all the hard work that you put in before this, that paycheck that you get every week, like that's where you this is where you set up yourself financially for the future. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
No, it makes complete
You,
sense.
and I mean, and that's coming from a wisdom from a guy with family where, at the time I might not have been, I wasn't probably in a direct place to listen to it and really hear it.
Yeah.
Now, kids, I mean, what great advice. Like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, you're setting yourself up to be financially independent for the rest of your life by doing
Mhm.
and just come in with a good attitude, and that's the,
And it all worked out. It all worked out,
yeah. At the end of the day, and he had mentioned to me, he said, your wrestling career is kind of what you did before this. If you get to do any like really good wrestling after this, it's just extra. And I got WWE, I got to do so much fun, good wrestling. You know what I mean? Some of my favorite moments of my career are there. You know what I mean? Match with Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania 35. I'll always remember that.
I was there live. It was a moment for sure.
Yeah, and my daughter was there, and she came and all like.
Was that her first WrestleMania live?
That was her first WrestleMania. Her first.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, getting to wrestle Brock. There were some really cool matches and moments. You know what I mean? Some of the live event stuff that I did with Randy Orton, Orton is just fantastic, and so a lot of that stuff, were like, man, it was really great wrestling.
So before we move on to Daniel asking the next question, I just want to bring up a moment I remembered because you brought up William Regal, and one of my favorite clips to find online and whatnot is when you guys had that match. I believe it was like on Superstars and and you guys played that trick on him in the UK, and you guys played his old theme song. It's like, he's a man. I got so caught off guard. Every time I watch it, it makes me laugh because I'm like, that's so funny because you clearly did not see it coming.
Yeah.
No, for sure. But I found it really fascinating that you were able to main WrestleMania against Roman Reigns earlier, just past this year. And then a few months later, you're having an instant classic with Kenny Omega. How does that make you feel when you look back at the year of 2021?
So I don't really do that.
Oh,
wow. It's just not in my mindset to look back and be like, wow, that was amazing or anything like that. Like the WrestleMania moment was weird, just weird.
Oh, wow.
I honestly didn't feel like I should be in that triple threat match with Roman and Edge. Like I story was strong enough on its own to just be them. And I know for sure what I was going to do contract wise, but I knew I was going to be taking some time off. After, like when my contract expired, it was the last day of April, so I think it was April 30th, whatever it was. And I was like, okay, even if I come back, I should do something where I wrestle somebody else and kind of put them over at WrestleMania.
yeah.
I thought Jey Uso would have been a great choice for that, but somebody else in that vein too,
For sure.
or whatever. So that was my thinking going out, and whatever when I walked out for that match at WrestleMania, it felt so empty, and like fans were cheering and all that kind of stuff, but it was honestly, I feel everything when I wrestle, and that match, what I remember most about that match is just feeling empty and thinking like, oh man, I legitimately thought like, am I gonna die? Is this like a premonition that I'm gonna die? Like happens, and I was like, huh, and I wasn't even freaked out by it, and that's maybe what made me think it was like even more true. It's like, oh, maybe you get this peaceful calm right before you pass away. That's what's gonna happen when I die, and so it's like, oh, I get this peaceful calm, and I'm content, but I'm not like, all of this just seems like it's a dream. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was really weird. The Kenny Omega match was completely different in the sense.
That's what I was gonna say. Was there a contrast there? Because now you're in Ashraf Stadium.
But,
yeah.
And I don't want to say it's a contrast between WWE and AEW because honestly, I was stoked for the last match I had in WWE, which was
no, for sure. I just meant for your own feeling though.
Yeah. It's like, but the match with Kenny Omega, I mean, it was the setting. It was I don't put a lot of pressure on myself, but in my mind, when I decided to come to AEW, like I looked at it as this is going to be the last full time run of my career, but I don't want to look at it as like a downside. The apex. This is the best I'm ever going to be. Like the best. I've been wrestling for 22 years, and nothing that I've done before is going to be as good as these next 3 years. And so I was putting a lot of pressure on myself as far as that. And one of the things I talked with Tony about is like, hey, coming in hot, coming in and being like, hey, I want to challenge the best guy, and I want to, I just want to go out there and do it. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself. But then when I went out there those moments before, and you just breathe it in. And like the crowd was so great, and Kenny's so great,
Yeah.
and I like even talking about it now, I get goosebumps. You know what I mean? Feeling, the feeling was incredible.
I believe so. Let's talk about the future now. Let's talk about moving forward. You are now the number one contender for the AEW World Championship. You won the World Eliminator Tournament a full year. Hangman Page, the Cowboys' tale has come to a conclusion. He's the champion now, and that's who it looks like you'll be facing moving forward. So this is probably like a two-ended question. First, how do you feel about Hangman Page as an opponent? And are you just a little bit disappointed you're not wrestling Kenny again for that championship, considering how the last match ended?
So I think Hangman Page is awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's when people connect like that with a crowd, it becomes magic, right? Like that's what you want, and you want it, and it's like, and one of the cool things to me about Hangman Page is that he's not somebody who had, Kenny Omega had a name coming in.
Yeah.
The previous champions, you know what I mean? You look at Jericho, you look at Moxley and Kenny, and although Kenny wasn't in WWE, Kenny had made a huge name for himself in Japan, all that kind of stuff. Hangman didn't have that big of a name,
No.
and so he's like I look at him as an AEW homegrown star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's cool when I'm on a show. So when he came out and he won I forget what they call it, but that ladder match thing that he won to get a title shot. CM Punk and I were both on that show. The loudest reaction of that show was Hangman Adam Page. You know what I mean? And so it's like, to me, that's super cool, and so I think that speaks volumes of him as far as how he's been able to progress and that sort of thing, and it speaks volumes of AEW that they put him in a position where they trust him to do that, because an AEW being the world champion is a big thing. Now, am I a little disappointed? Yes.
Yeah.
So, and part of that is kind of story a little bit. Like I mentioned it last week on Dynamite that I was disappointed that it wasn't Kenny Omega standing across from me. Realistically, I'm thrilled that it's Hangman.
Yeah.
And I also feel like at some point, Kenny and I are going to get a chance to do it again. He's taking some time off right now, but I think hopefully we're going to get a chance to do it again. That said, I was forced to retire, before, and you never want to take those things for granted. You know what I mean? The idea that like, hey, I'll be able to do this match again, or I'll be able to wrestle this guy again. You just don't want to take that for granted.
Yeah. No, for sure.
For sure. I was going to ask, now that you've been in AEW for a few months and been backstage, who are some names you like to work with in AEW that you haven't able to been work with yet?
I mean, there's so many guys, really.
Yeah.
And there's even guys that, I feel like I haven't worked them before, because even though I'd worked them maybe 12 years ago or whatever it was, like I wrestled Eddie Kingston, right?
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago. And it was like, we haven't wrestled since 2010, right? Like, it feels like I'm wrestling a whole different person. You know what I mean? As far as from the young guy perspective, like there's like I really like Daniel Garcia's style. I think Dante Martin is incredible. You know what I mean? So there's those guys. There's Darby Allin, who I think is just fantastic. I worry about him physically, about all the stuff in his body.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of different. You've got the Dante who's like doing this incredible high flying. Darby, he does stuff that seems a little reckless, but I find him to be very psychologically sound, and also this great character, right?
Yeah.
Daniel Garcia is an excellent technical wrestler. You've got MJF, who's just like he's evolving what you would have called the standard heel act, right?
Yeah.
Like, but he's evolving in a way that's like, it's modern, and it's like, it doesn't feel like he's just out there being a heel. It feels like he's an asshole. And
100%.
I talked to him, and he's kind of an asshole, right? So it's like he's made the claim. It's so funny. He's made the claim that it's impossible. There's not anybody in this world who can double leg him. He said he's susceptible to a single leg takedown, but nobody can double leg him because he's a sprawl god. He said he's never been double legged his entire amateur wrestling career, and I was like, oh, how you must have had a pretty good amateur run. Ah, no, my last year was my freshman year of high school. I was like, what? That kind of bold claim is, it's a lot of fun. I'm like, oh, okay. He is kind of this, right? Like this is
Yeah.
just turned up to 11. So there, there's those kind of guys. I also think, God, and I blank on names so quick, but Sammy Guevara,
Mhm.
like he's so good, and like
Yeah.
there's all these different guys that I just the ones too, because I love bear stuff, is the bear country guys.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Bear Bronson in the stadium
Yeah,
running.
I would love to do just a program just about either where we team together or I wrestle them, and just based on our love of bears. And so
I think the promo, if you guys had a match where it was like a 6-man tag, the promo the three of you could do would be hilarious.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think that's fine. You mentioned Eddie Kingston a little bit earlier too, and that actually leads into my next question, because I've been a fan of yours for a very long time, since you were in Ring of Honor and whatnot. And even yesterday when I was kind of like low key hype up that I was going to interview you without saying I was going to interview you, I posted some videos of you and Colt when you guys are doing those wrestling diaries in the car and whatnot, which was kind of like a vlog before a vlog. Who would have thought? But I find it like, you went WWE for 10, 11 years, and now you get to come back to this AEW locker room. There's a lot of familiar faces of people you worked with back then, like the Chuck Taylors, the Eddie Kingstons, the Colt Cabanas. Like, how does that feel to like kind of walk in this locker room? Yeah, there's all this new young talent, but then there's these people that were like the friends you had when you were breaking into this business in the early years.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun, and specifically because I'm really bad at keeping in touch with people. Like I don't like to be on my phone. So like
Yeah.
I have close to 3,000. I can tell you right now. Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
I have 2,985 unread text messages.
Oh wow.
And so I'm traditionally a very good friend if we're seeing each other in person.
Yeah.
Friend if you're trying to get a hold of me via text or phone call or something like that, you know what I mean? And so and part of my thing, and I think wrestling is partly to blame, and especially like my independent kind of start, the first 10 years of my career, is always just this idea of, okay, I'll just see him down the road, right? I like to be present with the people that I'm with. And so it's like, oh, I'll see him down the road, and then when you sign with a place like WWE, then you don't see him down the road, and
Yeah.
you're ever going to see him down the road. And so one of the really fun things for me is, it's like when I came into AEW, it's like, oh, I am seeing them down the road, right? It's like
That's true.
yeah. And so because like I do have a decent amount of guilt for not texting people back, but I just can't. I don't know. I just can't do it. Like, I apologize to all of my friends.
No, I'm the same way sometimes. And people think, like, you seem like you're such an extrovert. Like, you're always out there doing. I'm like, yeah, but I'm really not. But I can do it, but I'm not. Like, like it's this weird combination. Like, if the light's on, I'll do what I need to do. But when it's off, like, I want my peace. I want my I need to just meditate myself alone in my own space. Like, like.
Yeah, well, and for me, and especially like with becoming a dad and all that kind of stuff, like there's always something tugging at your attention. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, so you have to prioritize that. And my priorities when I'm at home are giving my kids attention, and then my wife attention, right? Everyone looks at that paradigm as like, okay, your kids come first, but then at what point does your spouse come in, right? And then when you add in like, okay, the things that I have to do, like training and whatever it is, like all of a sudden there becomes very little time to like to look at my phone and text people or whatever. Although, more and more our society makes time to do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's just, I'm so. I know it's way too early to tell, and they're so little, your children. But I'm like, man, I wonder if any of them will become wrestlers in the future. I'm like, both their parents are wrestlers.
Well, so our little boy, I don't know, our daughter,
Yeah.
our daughter likes to like grapple around and stuff too. She also was on a boat with some friends this summer, and Bree was on the boat with her, and she goes, "My daddy breaks arms, and he teaches arms too." And Bree was a little embarrassed, like he's not teaching her arms. Don't worry. But like she goes up, she's in preschool now, and she goes up and she gives these girls these big hugs and shakes them like this. And I was just like, oh, that's so my daughter. But our son, he's just a natural, just bear hugging everybody. Thinks physicality is so fun. Like his Nikki Bella's son Mateo. Yeah, the other day was over at our house and just comes up and just grabs Buddy by the hair and just yanks his hair. Buddy didn't even cry. He didn't cry. He was just like, "Oh yeah, that's just the way of the world." And then he just
He's already a little wrestler. There you go.
Although, to me, I just, I don't want to put that on them.
Yeah.
Something I enjoy. I want them to find whatever it is. I want them to find something that they love as much as I love wrestling. And it doesn't have to be wrestling, right?
Yeah.
It can be anything, but something that they love the way that here I am 22 years in wrestling and I still love it and it still excites me. And I'm still like I've got a show tonight and I'm a little giddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't even had coffee yet. And I'm just like,
That's awesome. Yeah. Is there any chance we see you come back wrestle here in the Pacific Northwest? Like, I'm based out here in Vancouver. I know you wrestled back here in the past at ECCW a long, long time ago. I know Defy is really popping off in the Seattle area. Is there any chance we see you coming out this way again, close to home? I know Washington's your hometown, so.
Yeah, so I would love to do a show with Defy. Apparently, so they tried to reach out to me when Mox wasn't able to do their show about shows. Unfortunately, I was on mom and dad duty, and Bree had Survivor Series, and like I couldn't do it. But I don't handle any of that stuff anymore. But but it's like but yeah, I would love to wrestle for Defy. I don't know. There's part of me that just wants to go on this like fun little tour of all the places I used to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not all of them, but like ECCW in Surrey was like a big part of my, like it kept me in when I got fired from WWE the first time in 2001. Like they were running shows every weekend. I would drive up. It was like 6 hours from my house, and they would do like 2 or 3 shows in a weekend. The pay wasn't great, but it was like it kept me in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys are such great guys and stuff like that. So I mean, like doing some stuff like that, it would just be fun for me.
We'd love to see you back out here. It'd be great.
Sure.
I also want to ask, so like when you came into AEW, and we touched on it a little bit, you came in with a completely different philosophy than CM Punk. When Punk was talking about stuff, it was a lot of, I want to work with the younger talent. I'm looking forward to working with people I've never worked with before. And then when I watched you in the scrimmage, you were like, well, I just want to kick some heads in and I want to wrestle everybody. Why was that your philosophy? And what were you really like? What is your goals in AEW?
Well, so it was interesting because part of that was reactionary on my part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To CM Punk's original promo, which was so great, right?
Yeah.
But what he was saying, I was like, whoa, that was kind of my perspective, right? Too.
Mm-hmm.
Come in and I want to wrestle the young guys and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where my mindset was at. And then I was like, they don't want 2 people like that. And I was like, screw that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna be the best.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna like, okay, there's the like, okay, I want to work the young guys or whatever. And like I can tell you guys that and like from a non-character perspective, yeah, I'd love to wrestle the Dante Martins and the stuff like that. But realistically, I want to be in the main events, and I want to be the match that sells the show, and I want to like put me in that spot, and I'll wrestle 30 minutes, and I'll blow your mind, and I'll kick some heads in, and I'm not gonna like, and I'm not gonna like apologize for that. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like there's this weird thing. Wrestling's evolved so much, and fans' reactions to wrestling evolve so much. It's almost like, fans are talk about ratings and like, oh, so and so, like he might get these live crowd reactions. about this or whatever, like, and they concern themselves with the business aspect of it or whatever it is, or like, oh, he's this, he should be putting young guys over, or he's this, he shouldn't be putting young guys over. Like all these different things, right? But like the fans' reactions to wrestling are really starting to evolve, and kind of taking that into account as far as from a character perspective and saying like, hey, I don't care what any of your expectations are. I'm going to come in here and all these young guys, the Dante Martins, the Darbys, the MJFs, I don't care. None of them are as good as me, and I'm going to kick all their heads in, right?
Yeah.
And there's the idea that like, oh, I don't want to say that. That's kind of mean. But then there's like, you know what? Screw it.
Yeah, and considering where we are now, like it makes more sense, you know,
Yeah.
with this attitude. So like, I don't care who the champion is.
For
I
sure.
want to be the champion, you know, and it works out.
For sure. No, speaking of CM Punk, I wanted to ask, now that you guys are in the same company after, well over almost a decade, actually, do you think we'll potentially see you facing CM Punk in the future or possibly reuniting as a tag team to take on a tag team like the Young Bucks or FTR even?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those are really exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also mentioned two teams that I would love to do like a serious program with, not just a one-off thing, but just like, okay, and who better to team with than Punk, right? Although and so, and I also thought, and I've always kind of thought this, and I've said this even when I was in WWE, it felt to me like Punk and I were destined to do a WrestleMania match, and then it just never happened, right?
Yeah.
Like it just felt like, man, it's so perfect, and it makes so much sense that we would have this WrestleMania. He and I would have this WrestleMania match against each other, and
Mm-hmm.
never happened.
Yeah, no, and I thought that too. I thought WrestleMania 30 would be dope if it was CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson. I want to say Daniel Bryan, but yeah.
But now, given the time, how long it's been we've been in the ring against each other or even together as a team, like now, like I feel like when we do it, it'll be big, and it'll be big in a different way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I'd really look forward to. I also like the idea of us battling over who the real best in the world is. If not, I don't know. And so it's that sounds like a lot of fun.
For sure.
No, I think a lot of us wrestling fans have been looking forward to it. Once Punk came back, and then we realized you were coming there too. We're like, oh, it could happen again. Like the best can almost wrestle forever. We're gonna get Bryan and Punk hopefully one more time, because you guys wrestled a ton in Ring of Honor and other places, and then WWE, of course. Now AEW. Like only so many rivalries in the history of wrestling have been able to cross over different brands and companies like that. And it's super cool, you know.
Yeah.
Couple last questions. This one's probably a little. It's more because it's fascinated the wrestling fans on the internet. Most wrestlers, when they come into a new company, just generally, we always see them repping their own merchandise. You've been repping this white T-shirt, and I'm just curious. The white T-shirt has become infamous with the wrestling fans. One of my friends on Instagram named Tom's_Custom makes really good edits. He's always making fake ads that they're gonna sell this white T-shirt on AEWshop.com and stuff. What is the story behind the white T-shirt?
So the AEW came up with a very nice "The American Dragon is Back" T-shirt.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that has confused their merchandising people and also confused the WWE merchandising people is that I don't want to sell people things, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like, so it's a choice. It also makes my life simpler in the sense of like I don't have to worry about what I'm going to wear on TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
A white shirt and some joggers, right? There's Steve Jobs was infamous for like he would just do the black turtleneck thing, so he didn't have to worry about because he does. I don't want to waste my time thinking about what I'm going to wear, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, so there's a certain aspect of that to it, but part of my thing of service is just this idea of how do we benefit the planet, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that is hard for me is, okay, if I'm trying to sell people stuff, am I actually trying to help the issues that are facing the world today, and especially from a environmental perspective, where we have, there are some places who need stuff, right? So it's like when you say consume less, it's like, oh, well, what about the people in the poorest countries in the world? What about the bottom 1 billion? I'm not telling them to consume less, right?
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be pushing people to consume more. I don't want to say like, hey, buy my shirt, unless the shirt, by purchasing the shirt, does more good than harm.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the companies I really like is Ten Tree, and I have no affiliation with them, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But they plant 10 trees for every product you buy. Now, does that offset the negative of taking resources from the earth to make their products? I don't know. You know what I mean? That's with WWE. That was one of the things that in the last merch shirt that I had, because for a long time I wouldn't wear any of my merch shirts there to the ring either. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't as overt with the white T-shirt. So all the money that I made from those shirts, I put back into planting trees, and then got them to make it from completely organic and or recycled material. And so AEW's put out the shirt that they put out is made with organic / recycled material as well. But I just don't feel good about asking people to buy things, and even when you're not saying, hey, buy my shirt outright,
Yeah.
an implicit suggestion when you're wearing the shirt to, you know what I mean? And so it's like, so yeah, it's been kind of a conscious choice, and kind of a conscious choice that I'm directing my life with a little bit, as far as like, I don't want to sell people stuff like the stuff that they don't need, right? You know,
for sure.
how I make my money is entertaining people in a way that, for the most part, except for me flying, is carbon neutral. You know, we watch on these screens that we already have. You're already watching things. You know what I mean? Like, some people will probably say that, well, there's this negative and there's that negative and there's whatnot. But so that's just kind of my stance on the whole white T-shirt thing.
We like it. The fans like it.
That's good.
We find it intriguing. We're just, I told you, everyone's like, and then one day Kenny came out in a white T-shirt too. We're like, this.
Well, so his white shirt, it was really funny because I saw him backstage and I was like, oh, his had a design on it, but the design was in white. So you couldn't even see that he had a design on his shirt.
You couldn't.
I was thinking that. I was like, oh, it's because he's like a next level thinker when it comes to wrestling, right? Like, he's thinking of things that I'm not thinking of. And I was like, oh, and I didn't ask him about it. I was like, oh, but in my mind, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's doing that to play off of my white shirt, and he just didn't have a plain white shirt.
No, I was like, no, we love it. The fans love the white shirt. It's just now we get to know why, but we're like, he's wearing this white shirt. What does the white shirt mean?
Yeah.
For sure. But I wanted to ask one thing. As a longtime fan of yours and someone who's been pursuing professional wrestling, and I've been training here down in Dallas, Texas for a moment, what is some advice you would give?
So it's pretty much the same advice for anything else that you want to pursue, and it's you have to pursue it with everything you have, right? And there's no guarantees that you're going to make it, and that's okay, right? Okay that there's this uncertainty as far as if you will ever make any money with it. Enjoy. So the best advice I ever got, because you have to understand, I'm not very big, and when I was in high school, I was pretty good at school, and there was only one teacher who supported me going to be a wrestler, and he was my high school English teacher, and he was great, and he said, the best thing I ever did was before I went to college, I went and joined the Peace Corps. And it gave me a better sense of who I was as a person, right? So then when I went to college, I was like, entered the Peace Corps, I did this stuff. And then now I know kind of what I like and what I'm interested in, and I want to be a teacher. I want to help people, right, in this way. And he said, listen, I don't know anything about wrestling. I don't know if you're going to do good or if you're not going to do good or whatever it is. But you're going to learn a lot about yourself by just doing it and giving your all towards it, right? Like you'll have failings. You'll have things that are just like somebody. I just did Busted Open Radio.
Yeah.
And Tommy Dreamer was talking about, and everybody used to say that you can't talk and all this kind of stuff. And the reality is, I couldn't talk, right? Like I wasn't a very good speaker.
Yeah.
So know that if I work hard at something, and this is a mindset perspective, if I work hard at something, I can get better at it. And so it took me a long time to get to work at it and get better at it and all that kind of stuff. But it's like it's taking these things, all these things that you're not good at, and you might not be good at them at first, but you keep working hard at them and you keep chipping away at them and you learn a lot about yourself and you improve with these other different things. Like so, one of the things, and I wrote about this in my book, my last year of high school, in my English class, I was supposed to get up and read my essay, and I couldn't even get through like 4 sentences. I just started. I couldn't even finish it, and I just sat down. Wrestling has taught me to do this, where I can talk to you guys, and I don't know how many people will listen to this and watch this, and I'm completely comfortable with it. You know? I go out there in my spandex underwear and talk to thousands of people, and it doesn't faze me at all. But I didn't go from high school to this. It's just this gradual process, and all of it is a gradual process of learning. And I was talking to William Regal's son, who's becoming a wrestler. And one of the things that is, if you map out all the things that you need to learn to be a professional wrestler, and part of it is a certain amount of zen, because there's the unpredictability of it all. But you map out all of these things that you need to get better at. And it's not only just making you better at wrestling, it's making you better at life, right? Just teaching you all sorts of different things. And I assume you could do that with pretty much any job. But I mean, that's success in wrestling to me is all about mindset, right? Like, and success in most things, like you can either come into it with, oh gosh, like, I'm doing this crappy indie show in front of 25 people or whatever it is, and I'm only getting paid $25, or I'm not getting paid at all. Or you can look at it as like, man, I'm going to go wrestle in front of 25 people. This is kind of funny. Like, no matter what happens on the journey of this, whatever happens on the journey of this in itself is a cool moment. My dad, the last time my dad saw me wrestle was it was in Seattle. It was like Randy Orton and John Cena were supposed to go face to face. They were doing the time.
I was there. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So super cool moment where all of Key Arena is chanting Daniel Bryan. My dad got to see me be a superstar.
I was chanting.
What makes that really special is my dad also got to see me in Longview, Washington, wrestle in front of 45 people when nobody knew who I was or cared who I was, right?
Yeah.
And those juxtaposed to each other, where my dad saw it and was like, and he came back and like, yeah, my dad wasn't a wrestling fan. He's like, that was fun.
Yeah.
We got to make the drive down there together, and we drove back, and like, yeah, like so that is in a long-winded version. That's any wrestler.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Coming from you, I watched since I remember like when you first won the World Heavyweight Championship in 2011, and then main event, and then retired. Like I've been through it. Like so thank you. That means a lot coming from someone like you, who I consider arguably the greatest of all time. So thank you.
Yeah. And I think it's just general life advice. You know what I mean? So much. I don't know. Especially in entertainment, there's a lot of like, I don't know, it's weird. There's a lot of negativity, and I'm not surrounded by like normal people in their normal office jobs too often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I see my friends, they're outside of work and they're generally happy or whatever it is, But I think there's a lot of people in wrestling who focus on the negative things, or this could be better, or this could be better, or this could be better, as opposed to focusing on like, hey, here are the things that are within my wheelhouse that I can change, and these other things I can't change. So, hey, let's just have fun,
Yeah.
And that,
You're doing what you wanted to do the entire time, and you got to remember that sometimes,
Yeah. Well,
sometimes people get lost and they're like, what's next? But it's like you're doing what you wanted to do when you were like 10, 15 years old. You're doing it. So
Yeah, well, and it's like, there's these times where people said, "Oh man, that must have been really hard." So for a while, I was training at the Inoki Dojo, and I was sleeping on the dojo mats in like this warehouse, and then like sometimes sleeping in my car or whatever it is, and then and people have said to me like, "Oh man, I can't imagine doing that," and I was like, "Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was actually fun, and I have a lot of really cool stories because I was living at the Inoki Dojo. Me and this guy Bobby Quantz, we were just in there. And
yeah.
Amrock and Steve Blackman just come in. They're looking for whoever the guy is, and we're Bobby and I are sorry, nobody's here, just us. And Ken Shamrock just looks at us, and goes, "You guys want to learn heel hooks?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." He spent 5 minutes never telling us the danger of heel hooks. Heel hooks are one of the most like dangerous things you can do in grappling.
Yeah.
He just teaches us heel hooks, and then he's like, "Oh well, I guess Simon's not showing up. We'll get out of here." Like, I ended up now, like as I grapple and do jujitsu, heel hooks just like they're kind of my thing, and that was my first introduction. But like literally like 2 weeks later, I'm rolling with TJ Perkins, TJP, and I get him in a heel hook, and Ken Shamrock didn't. This is what Ken Shamrock did not tell us, and this is what I will tell everybody now. You get a heel hook and people don't feel it right away, so don't crank it. But because TJ wasn't tapping, I thought, oh, I must not have it right. Yoink. And tore out his knee and all this kind of stuff. Like,
oh my God.
Oh no, this has gone horribly wrong.
But yeah, that's life. Right? Life is experiences and what you learn. There is a nugget of truth in the whole concept of like sometimes the beauty's in the journey. You just don't know it at the time. You get something like, oh, all the stuff we went through that was a struggle was kind of fun. It was kind of like, we learned a lot through that.
And so I don't know. This is getting way outside of the realm of wrestling.
I know. I could talk to you about this for hours. I know you got to go soon, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you guys heard of time as the fourth dimension? Like,
yeah,
a little bit. I think did you talk about this on the Jimmy Jacobs podcast? Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Maybe I think so. Yeah.
So if you look at time as the fourth dimension, so like we're seeing things in 3 dimensions, right?
Yeah.
But fourth dimension is time. So if you look at your life, like my life is like a centipede, right? The centipede is me as a baby, and the head of the centipede is me at my death. And that you could look at it as that entirety. And if sometimes, so I meditate on different things, each day or whatever it is, but sometimes I meditate on that in the sense of like, my life is an entirety. It's not like, you couldn't look at me today and say, has Brian lived a good life? You won't know until the end, right? But that whole thing is a dimension upon itself that, and I may not be explaining, but the whole thing is the centipede, right?
Yeah.
There's different aspects of the centipede that all have their parts and uses, and their good parts and their bad parts. And if you focus on every part, no matter how good it is, every part has a negative part.
No, for sure.
Every part has a positive part. And if you focus on the positive parts of each part of your centipede, this is just one part of my centipede. You know what I mean? Centipede's gonna expand a little bit more, and we don't know when it's gonna end, right? But this is just one part of my centipede. So I like to look at time. I like to look at time as a dimension in my life as a completion, rather than just like this individual moment. Sometimes.
Sure.
I feel that. I get that. Yeah. I think we should wrap it up there, though.
Okay.
I'm not even saying that because if I could, because I talked earlier. We kind of got how much time we had, and we've gone over it. But I know you got to head out.
So Meech, my manager,
got
to be getting used to this thing of like, because I just talk. Right?
No, I love it. And like I could continue talking. I want to continue talking about this for like another 20 minutes. I do find it really interesting. But I'm like, you got a show to go to tonight's Wednesday.
Yeah, this is why I have 2,985 unread text messages on my phone, because the 3 of us don't really know each other. But we're all seemingly good humans, and we can make this connection and talk about interesting things and have fun together and do these things. And why would I want to be looking at my phone? Right?
100%.
Sure.
And so it's like, but I get caught up in this thing of like, hey, people are cool, and ideas are cool, and it's fun to talk about stuff and whatever it is, And so it's just like, I get wrapped up sometimes.
the in-person, and I know this isn't technically in person, it's still virtual, but the eye-to-eye contact conversations is a different thing than looking at a phone through text message and stuff or talking. And I completely agree with that. I always say I'm like that generation that grew up prior to having computers and playing outside, cops and robbers and street hockey and whatnot. And then also that generation that got spoiled with technology.
Yeah.
So I get both sides. And I feel like the reason why I'm still so able to socialize normally with people, like a random stranger I can have a conversation with, because that's what I grew up doing anyways.
Yeah.
I'm scared for the next generation sometimes. I'm like, it's a lot of this.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not a lot of this, you know?
I have one more story to tell just in that.
Okay.
So like when I was a kid, I stayed the night at my friend's house and I had this crush. It was like when I was in 5th grade. I had this crush on this girl. And he's like, dude, you got to ask her out, whatever that means when you're in 5th grade, right? We're going to
after a note.
yeah. And so it's like, dude, you gotta ask her out. What's the worst that could happen? And you know, the worst that could happen is she could just say no. And if she says no, I'll give you $5. What? Right? So in worst case scenario, he's going to give me $5. So I go and I go to school the next day, and I'm like, super shy. I'm like, hey, do you want to go out with me? And she goes, no, you're fat. And I was like, oh, that was way worse than just no.
Yeah.
Right? But so like you go through that. And then that night that day I went to that same friend's house, right? And we talked about it or whatever it is. And when you're in 5th grade, it's not like you know how to convey complex emotions or whatever it is. But then we just played in the woods right next to his house, and he was there, like there with me playing, and that helps deal with the pain in a way that I don't think playing video games with people or on digital platforms or whatever, nothing can convey that same sense of I'm here for you, like actually being there with you. And so
that's present right there, yeah.
That's what I worry about with like my daughter and my son and all that kind of stuff is like their friends texting them and saying like, oh, that must be really hard, rather than
showing up,
them hugging them saying, oh, I'm sorry, that was really hard. Let's play. And like,
yeah,
all out, no matter what happened to you, I'm still your friend. I'm still like, we're still going to climb trees together. We're still going to do this.
Yeah.
He didn't say this, but in your head, it's like, oh, that doesn't matter. I can still have fun, rather than when you go back and you're looking at a screen and like, then you self-obsess or whatever it is, And so that's my big concern with the kids and the screen stuff is like, who's going to be there for my son when somebody says, no, you're fat. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, he might just bear hug them anyways, but
he might. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think he's going to suffer from the same shyness problems that I did because he's already so outgoing.
That's awesome. Thank you again. Once again, I know it's Wednesday. You got somewhere to be tonight. You're wrestling Colt Cabana. This doesn't drop the day after, so hopefully you guys have watched that match and enjoyed it. But honestly, from sounds so corny to say, I don't know what I was about to say, but from the bottom of my heart, it was a pleasure having you on here. It meant a lot. I've been a fan for a long time. It's super cool, and I'm excited to see you in All Elite Wrestling. Seemingly excited to just wrestle again, because every time you're in that ring, you just seem like you're having the time of your life. And as a fan, like it's fun for us to see that as well. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah,
this was a really fun interview. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, we try to keep it casual.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.